Yeah, those early years, it was trying to figure out if you could actually have a team in Lethbridge and keep competing and be able to run one financially. But like I said, the ownership group did a really good job, and, Lethbridge Bulls are very successful now.
Welcome to episode 265 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. It's hard to believe, but it's been 25 years since the Lethbridge Bulls joined what was then the Saskatchewan Major Baseball League. That decision changed the circuit forever, as it later became the Western Major Baseball League and is now known as the Western Canadian Baseball League. We have four great guests to take us down memory lane in a moment, but first, the news headlines. Congratulations to Calgary's Cohen Aiken on being named the NAIA Pitcher of the Week. The senior who guested on last week's podcast put together a gem for Lindsey Wilson College, striking out 16 in a 7-inning 4-0 victory. He's now 2-2 with a 2.49 ERA in 5 appearances, striking out 41 in just 21 innings of work. Congratulations as well to Vauxhall Academy of Baseball grad Johnny Volcano on being named the KCAC Player of the Week. He hit .529 with 6 home runs and 13 RBI and 4 wins for Ottawa University. The Medicine Hat Mavericks infielder was also named the Canadian Baseball Network's Player of the Week for his efforts. We'll keep the kudos coming as Prairie Baseball Academy alum Max Benton has been named the AMC Pitcher of the Week. He had a complete game 6-hitter for the William Woods University Owls, striking out 6 in that contest. And finally, Dogs Academy and Okotoks Dogs outfielder Alejandro Cazorla continues to swing a hot bat for Dayton University. He's been named an Ohio's College Advantage Student Athlete of the Week, hitting .308 with 2 home runs, 4 runs, and 4 RBI in 4 games against 2 of the top schools in the country with Vanderbilt and Wake Forest. A trio of commitment announcements over the last week coming from Vauxhall Academy as Rory McDonald is heading to Colby Community College, Jimmy Belanger will go to Eastern Arizona Community College, and Patrick McInnes is set to join Midland Community College. And more than 100 umpires have been selected to volunteer across the 7 Little League World Series events this coming summer. We'd like to tip our caps to Lethbridge's Tyler Malacca, who will be joining the crew at the Junior League Baseball World Series in Taylor, Michigan. Now on to this week's guests, and we are paying tribute this week to the 25th anniversary of Lethbridge Bulls baseball. It was back in 1999 when the Bulls joined what was then called the Saskatchewan Major Baseball League. The move became the first of several expansions into Alberta, culminating with a name change to the Western Major Baseball League, and it's now known as the Western Canadian Baseball League. If you haven't already, head to albertadugoutstories.com as our Ian Wilson has written a wonderful origin story about the Bulls, including the impact of former Baseball Alberta president and Prairie Baseball Academy founder Doug Jones, who saw that the best opportunity to grow the game was through the SMBL. The head coach at the time was none other than Todd Hubka, who is now the head coach at PBA. It was a natural fit for Hubka, who had already been involved in the baseball scene in Lethbridge and southern Alberta for years. Ian caught up with him ahead of the PBA annual banquet a few weeks back to take a trip down memory lane.
Todd, I'd like to start with talking about the Lethbridge Bulls and their 25th anniversary. You were a part of that original team, kind of a groundbreaking team, first Alberta team to set the stage for the Western Major Baseball League. What do you recall from that season, 1999?
That's a few years ago. That's kind of showing my age, isn't it? Back then there was a lot of Prairie Baseball Academy players that played on that team, and we competed really well. And back then, the Saskatchewan Major Baseball League, and it was a lot of fun. I think it was the right move that the ownership from the Lethbridge Bulls made to join that league. And I mean, look what it's become now. It's like, the powerhouse teams are the Alberta teams. So, but looking back on it, it was a learning curve for sure for the Lethbridge community and and us as coaches too. So, but it was good.
It's one thing to step into a coaching gig, but it's kind of like clean slate on this one. Everything's new. There's probably some on-field distractions, off-field distractions, all that. What was a bit chaotic that year?
Well, it's changed a lot, right? So I remember back then, like we didn't go in chartered buses. There was, I drove one van and an assistant coach drove the other van, and you're trekking across, Lethbridge heading east to Swift Current, Moose Jaw, and Saskatoon, and so those are the type of how much it's changed. It's just like it's grown so much, and the fan bases of all the communities have grown so much. But yeah, those early years, it was trying to figure out if you could actually have a team in Lethbridge and keep competing and be able to run one financially. But like I said, the ownership group did a really good job, and Lethbridge Bulls are very successful now.
Make it to the final that year. Like you said, you did compete. You had a successful year. I think it's the final game. You make the call to the bullpen, and it's to yourself. Give us a rundown on how that happens.
Well, back then it was you didn't have to play in college. So like the Saskatchewan teams were, majority of the kids were college players, but there was a couple other older kids, and my whole starting staff, I think, were all Division I arms that have, they got us to the championship. It took us 3 games to beat Swift Current to get there, and soon as we won that, like those guys all left to go back to school. So like we had nobody left, and there was me and a couple other arms. So I just like, okay, I'll go out there and we'll see how it goes. So I think it was a really good game. If I remember, I think it's a long time ago, but I think we lost like 5-4 or something like that.
It was like 1 or 2 runs.
Yeah,
pretty close. And was your assessment of your own pitching performance pretty good from that, or were you left with a little bit of steam coming out of the ears?
Yeah, there's no steam in this arm. Like it was like I have soft left-handed arm, right? That just pitch backwards to all the guys, and just hope that you have really good defense behind me. But yeah, that was that's back. That's like what is that? 99. So I mean that's a quarter of a century ago, right? So 25th anniversary. But I was a lot younger then, and my body could recover a little bit quicker. But it was fun.
McTavish was one of the names of that team, and he went on to coach the team later on as well, and obviously do some great things in coaching and with Boxall. What do you remember from Les's game as a player back then, and any other players that stood out from that team? Yeah,
well, Les, he was, his first year he was at Prairie Baseball Academy, and Coach Kubasek got him a scholarship to go to Washington State, and I believe that was after his freshman year at Washington State, he came and pitched for the Lethbridge Bulls that summer, and he brought and of course, like he threw in the bullpen for Washington State, but he was one of our starters, and some other great arms. We had Matt O'Brien, another kid from Washington State. He ended up playing AA, AAA. Zach Murray from Edmonton ended up passing away this year. But yeah, another great art. Brett Condro, another Alberta kid. So we had a really good Division I pitching staff. And Les, it was, what I liked about Les is he really competed. He beat up the strike zone, and just an easy guy to coach too.
What's it like seeing that relationship grow? Like in that particular 25 years ago, you're the coach, he's your pitcher, and there's a lot of miles under that bridge since then. And Les, I believe, is going to be here tonight and kind of celebrating with you. He was honored last year. What's it like to kind of just see that relationship grow from not just a player for you, but a baseball person in your life?
Yeah, more than that. Like me and Les have become very good friends. I probably talk to him more than any other baseball person. Like we talk, just about every morning when he's heading out to Boxall, he'll give me a phone call, and we'll start the BS section, and we'll talk about whatever. We're talking about our players, his players, or players somewhere else, or he works for the Phillies a little bit, and I work for the Twins a little bit, so we share the professional stuff. So we've become really good friends, and we talk probably 5 times a week. So
Speaking of Les McTavish, he was the star of that Bulls starting rotation while he was also trying to be a coach with the Lethbridge Elks program. He moved on to become the head coach at Vauxhall Academy and also joined Ian for a conversation about yesteryear.
Les, take us back to 1999. You are on the pitching staff of not the Lethbridge Bulls, the LA Bulls.
Oh, shoot. It takes me back a long ways, right? So it was neat to, at the time you don't realize that you're on the inaugural team. And I had played in the league before. I had played with the OM Pronghorns prior to that. It was neat to, at the time, actually, I was coaching the Lethbridge Elks. So I was still playing at Washington State, coaching the Lethbridge Elks as the pitching coach, and I would throw Wednesday nights for the Bulls, usually at home. So it was great. Todd Hubka, who's one of my best friends, was the head coach. And there's a lot of neat memories. My wife and I were dating at the time. She'd come watch games. It was a neat experience when you look back on it. It's 25 years ago, right? And I was probably in a little better shape and a hell of a lot less gray hair. But, it's great memories, and it's one of those things that you hope the kids that get to play this year have those same memories 25 years from now.
You're being a little modest because you threw a no-hitter that season, maybe you've forgotten. I don't know, but do you recall that and what that experience was like?
Yeah, actually, I do. It was probably my only no-hitter. It was my only no-hitter at that type of level. So it was neat to have that experience and, to be able to throw a no-hitter at home. Unfortunately, I think it was a Wednesday night or something, so there wasn't a big crowd or anything. But I made sure this past summer when Javier threw the no-hitter for the Bulls, and my two boys, Shea, was on the Bulls, so I made sure I reminded them that, hey, that's the second no-hitter for the Lethbridge Bulls. So I guess it's the first, but it was a great memory. I still remember, I believe it was a ground ball to our shortstop, Curtis Pascal, that turned a double play. I wish it was a perfect game, but I didn't throw enough strikes to throw a perfect game. So it's a cool honor and something I'll always remember.
Pretty cool season. You guys were very good that year. You guys went to the final. Coach Hubka pitches in the final. Any just memories from the team itself and your teammates?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we had a really good pitching staff that year. We had 5 Division I starters. One of my best friends, who was in my wedding party, he came out from Washington State. We had a boy from University of Iowa. We had another guy from Nicholls State. We had a player that was pitching, I believe, at the University of South Carolina, who were all friends of mine. So it was neat to have friends that you grew up with that you're playing in the SMBL, I guess, at the time. But it was certainly an honor to be part of that group, and it was a lot of fun. Lots of neat memories and lots of laughs and jokes after hours, and those are things that you hope your kids and the kids that are in the room tonight from PBA get to experience in their careers.
Walk me through the evolution of, since that team, we've seen the growth of PBA. You went on to coach the Bulls for a while as well. You obviously went on with Vauxhall Academy to create something very special there. And the Lethbridge Bulls transformed the league from a Saskatchewan Major Baseball League to what we see now in the Western Canadian Baseball League. So maybe just discuss some of the legacy pieces.
Yeah, there is some really cool pieces, and hats off to Doug Jones and Kevin Kvame for being a big part of those things, and Todd Hubka. The evolution is when you start going back memory lane, you start to look back on things and you realize how far things in Alberta and the league and Saskatchewan have came. Because back then you could be any age to play. Now it's a top tier Canadian college, U.S. college player league. And, when I look back on it and I got to coach in the league, I wasn't a very good coach then. I was the manager of the Bulls for 3 years. We had some really good teams. I was young, kind of immature, maybe kind of acted on a lot of emotion. I try to take pride that I don't do that anymore, but, it's so exciting to see where it's all went. And, not only is it a big thing for the Lethbridge Bulls that I think we're a leader in turning the SMBL into the WCBL, but the PBA, the Prairie Baseball Academy, was the leader in that. They were the first academy in the country. We might have been behind it as a high school academy, but they kind of led the charge. And there's a lot of people in the room tonight that, certainly you should take your hat off for.
You touched on your coaching experience with the Bulls. Was there experiences from that time that helped you in terms of your Vauxhall days or just later on in baseball?
Yeah, I think I acted on emotion, and I tried to act like how you acted 25 years ago. You can't act like that anymore, and I acted on emotion. I was making guys run, like just things that I wish I wouldn't have did. But I think it also helped me build me into the coach I am today, right? And at the end of the day, I hope the players that played for me long ago realized that they built a relationship with me. I cared about them because I cared about the players, right? And that's what you want as a coach. You certainly don't want kids acting in fear or trying to do some of those things. And in my world, my biggest goal was to try to, build a relationship with kids and help them get to the next level. And, that time when I coached the Bulls from 03 to 05 or 06, it helped build me into the coach I am today too, right? It helped me make some mistakes. It helped me build and some of those things. So
I don't want to keep you too much longer. I can hear things starting up in the background there, but shifting gears a bit to some of your current Vauxhall alumni, some that people are getting to know very well in the Blue Jays system, Adam Macko and Damiano Palmagiani. Can you maybe just give us some perspective on the contact you've had with them of late and just what you hope to see from them this coming year?
Yeah, they Adam and Damiano both played for Vauxhall for 3 years, so I'm super tight with them. They're a big part of our program. I do keep in good contact with them. They're exceptionally talented baseball players, but they're top shelf people, and both kids have a great future. I'd be very, very surprised if they don't get an opportunity to play in the big leagues, whether it's hopefully with the Blue Jays or with another organization. They're gifted, they're talented, they're extremely driven, and we're just proud that they were a big part of our program, and hopefully we had a small piece in the puzzle that helped them make them into the type of people they are today. So it's fun to watch. We have 42 or 44 players opening college baseball this weekend through the next 2 weeks, and it's fun to follow everybody. Your phone's blowing up and somebody has a good game or a bad game, and it's just neat to follow the success or the trials that some of the kids go through. So it's a great time. The next month and a half is a great time, and I'm really hoping that both boys get an opportunity with the Jays. And I don't think they'll be in the big leagues right off the shot, but moving forward, I think they both have the ability to play in the big leagues, certainly.
Les, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to let you get to it, and great seeing you.
My pleasure.
One of the players on the team that year was Prairie Baseball Academy's Denny Puszkar. Originally from Regina, he already knew what the league was all about, but admits even he didn't know what to expect from that original Bulls team. I chatted with him all about it earlier this week. Denny, thanks so much for joining us here on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm happy to be back again, Joe. Thanks for asking.
Hard to believe it's been 5 years since you and I last chatted, but even beyond that, 25 years since the Lethbridge Bulls made their debut in the then Saskatchewan Major Baseball League. Take us back to 1999 and your first thoughts on joining this brand new entity.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe it's been 25 years. A good friend of mine, Miles Fletcher, and I have chatted quite a bit since you reached out, and it's hard to believe it's been 25 years. At the time, I was familiar with it. I was a Regina guy, so I knew all about the SMBL, of course. And, the idea of Lethbridge getting a team made perfect sense. After the Black Diamonds left town, it was a logical fit, of course. And, yeah, it was exciting for several of us that were around the area to have that kind of ball come to town.
You mentioned the Black Diamonds, and I wanted to get into that a little bit. Was there any pressure that the team was feeling, given that now you're the big dogs in town, right? Like this Pioneer affiliated league team goes away, and now you are the big game, especially at then Henderson, but now Spitz Stadium.
Yeah, I don't think there was a whole lot of pressure like that. We talked about it. I remember having a couple conversations about it, certainly. We weren't sure if the buy-in for our team would be similar to what the Black Diamonds were, of course. And I think the fans were pretty receptive, even right off the get-go.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about the bringing some of the guys together. I mean, like you said, you're a Regina guy, so you knew about the league. So was there a pretty good buy-in from the get-go as far as the level of ball, the expectations around sort of what the level of ball was going to bring to Lethbridge and that kind of thing?
Yeah, Yeah, that first year we actually had a heck of a club, right? We had, and I guess, Kevin and, some of the staff there did a good job getting guys together. We had 4 Division I pitchers, right? And the makeup of our group was really quite different than what the league was at the time, right? Because if you'll remember, I don't know if you're familiar, but, there was certainly no age limit. We played teams. Swift Current, for example, had a fella named Kelly Haraska was his name, and been in the league forever. And he was a teacher, lived in California, came back to Swift every year to play ball. And that was a big part of the league then too. It wasn't collegiate the way it is now, or the way it's been for several years, I guess, right? And so we had a real young group. I was the grandpa at 23, and it was very different. But they did a good job getting guys together, and a lot of us were PBA based, of course, but we had a really good pitching staff, and it was fun. It was a heck of a year.
Talk a little bit about being able to have, I'll call it that, local contingent as well. You mentioned the PBA thing, and they had only been around for a few years, so being able to bring you all together again for the summer season as well, and there had to have been sort of that automatic dynamic of being a team already there.
Absolutely. We had, the vast majority of us knew each other pretty well, so that does give you a little bit of an advantage right off the hop, right? Like we had that relationship, and even a couple of the guys coming in, there were other connections there as well. Like I know Les had played with a couple on Team Alberta, Les McTavish, and so there was some real quick bonding stuff there. It was a real fun team, a real team that got together real quick, and we did well. I mean, we made the final that first year. It was a heck of a year.
What was it about that team that really set you apart? You mentioned the fact that you go to the league final, and we'll get into that in a second, but just the fact that you guys, I think, finished 16-8 on the year. Like, you were a competitive team right off the bat versus you see it a lot now as teams come in the first 2 or 3 or 4 years can be a bit of a struggle. Yeah,
for sure. What I think a big part was, that we were also familiar with each other, of course, right? We'd all coming off playing college baseball, so we had a lot of, we were in game shape, so to speak, right from day one, right? And, Coach Hub, Todd, and Scott Rhodes, our assistant there, they did a heck of a job with us, and, even just creating, a different environment for us, right? It was, coming off of a PBA season, it was, that's, a little more intense and, more down to business, so to speak, and Hub and Rosie made it real, it was fun, and it was, guys played loose, and it was just a different vibe altogether. And I think, hats off to those guys for, creating that environment for us. I think it really set the tone.
Did you know pretty early on that you had a team that was capable of going all the way to the championship, or did you feel like it was just, hey, let's take a game at a time and see what happens?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't really know, because you play some of these teams and everybody had a couple of dudes, of course, right? That's probably no different with any league, I guess. But, I liked what we had, particularly our staff, like I mentioned, like those you throw Les McTavish on the mound and you can win any day, right? And Chad Blackwell was another one of our guys, and he was just excellent. So, we knew we liked that kind of stuff. Johnny Borick, was our starting catcher behind the plate, and he was just unbelievable too. So, I really liked our stuff, but we were young. And so you just don't really know what you're going to get into or how things will progress. But it came together. I thought we had a real good year.
When you look back on it, any favorite memories or moments with that squad?
Most of which I probably shouldn't talk about on the show. Even just some of the trips, right? Some of the traveling, going to Melville was so much fun. We're staying in the hotel downtown, and there's a couple of local yokels fighting in the streets downtown, and we're all laughing and having a good time watching, and stuff like that. Being with the fellas, that part, really sticks out. Yeah, and then going to the final, of course, too. That was exciting. Like, I don't know if we did expect it, to be honest, and we got there, and it was great.
One of the things I took away reading through sort of the game reports out of the Lethbridge Herald in the days after, during that final, is it was A, very back and forth, but B, it seemed as though Todd was willing to pull out all the punches. In fact, I think he even pitched in the finale. Talk a little bit about that ideal that team had around, like, if we're here now, we might as well just put our pedal to the metal kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. And, we were, at the time, Les wasn't traveling with us. McTavish didn't travel with us. And, so we had to utilize our guys when we could. And Todd did a good job with that, of course. It was, Todd did a fabulous job with that group, actually, and using guys where they needed to be used. And, it was, hats off to him and to Scotty for setting up that.
Mm-hmm. Benefit of 2020 hindsight here, but what's it mean to you to have been a part of that legacy of being on that first team and opening the door to Alberta for the league, which later became obviously the WNBL and now what exists as the WCBL?
Yeah, it's cool. I haven't thought a whole lot about it. My kids are always interested now, and they've seen some newspaper articles, of course, and as we enter our 25th year, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's pretty special to be a part of that first group. So I still keep in touch with a lot of the guys. Yeah, it's pretty neat. I'm happy to be a part of it.
The league has obviously changed a little bit over the years as well. You mentioned the no age limit as a prime example of that, but being a part of the Lethbridge baseball scene and obviously getting to see things through the not just the PBA lens, but also the Bulls lens now, what do you notice most being able to look back at the time when you were a player versus what you're seeing on the field now?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think like most sports, like even just watching the product now, like everything is just improved, right? Like I do think we were good then. The league was good then, but like everything's just gotten better. Right, 90 miles an hour back then was a big deal. Now it's pretty common, for example, right? So it's just more of that kind of stuff. And then, from a league perspective, the organization of it, the advertising of it, all that is just top notch, right? Mm-hmm. All-Star game is super cool every year, so they've done a good job with that too, promoting the league. Mm-hmm. And, making it a collegiate summer league like it has now is, I think is the right move. I think they've done a nice job kind of developing that league.
Mm-hmm. Of course, you mentioned it as well. You've been able to give back through your involvement with minor ball in Lethbridge as a coach, a parent as well of 3 boys who've all taken a liking to the sport as well. What's it meant to you in that way to have been able to have a hand in keeping the baseball scene in Lethbridge thriving as you have?
Yeah, it's really great, actually. And, I've had a couple of players now, several players now that I've coached, at younger ages, of course, in Little League and whatnot, who, have made their way through the system and have, been lucky enough to play with the Bulls too. And it's really great. It's kind of a special feeling to be able to watch some of those guys, get to that level. And, you can't help but reminisce a little bit when you see the kids that I know who are, doing some of those things too. So it's awesome. I really enjoy watching that. And I've really enjoyed, being a part of the grassroots part in Lethbridge. And, the Bulls have been a big part of, establishing, higher level ball in Lethbridge and kind of, helping out coaches and, some of those things. So it's been good. It's been really fun for me to watch some of that stuff.
Fantastic stuff. The final question I'm going to ask you on this, and it's about this coming year. It's going to be a lot of waxing nostalgic and that kind of thing, with talking about the 25th anniversary of the Lethbridge Bulls. As you look back on the last 25 years of Lethbridge Bulls baseball, what stands out most for you?
Oh, the 25 years of Lethbridge Bulls baseball. The TCMM Memorial Games, those are all really special with Bulls and Vauxhall, of course. Watching friends, watching the kids come up and play, like I just mentioned, that's really special for me. Having buddies, coach the program over the year, that's really cool to see too. So, even just that it's made 25 years, that's a pretty special accomplishment, right? You could argue that the Bulls really helped change the face of the league, and that it's become a collegiate summer league. So, that part too is pretty special, and that the Bulls played a real big hand in that. So, yeah, I take a lot of pride in that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, as you should. Well, Denny, really appreciate you taking a trip down memory lane with me. Thanks so much for joining us again here on the show.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Joel. Anytime, I'm glad to talk.
And finally, Kevin Kvame has worn many hats for the Bulls program over the years, now the president and general manager of the squad, as well as the president of the WCBL. He says things have come a long way since those humble beginnings. Ian sat down with Kevin to talk about the old days and also about what's to come.
Kevin, joined by you here at the Prairie Baseball Academy banquet, which is fitting because the PBA made up the bulk of the roster for the 1999 Lethbridge Bulls, which was the first year of the team. Walk me through how your memory, how you look back at your memories of that team.
Well, if you start about how the Bulls came to light, it started with the departure of the Lethbridge Black Diamonds, who were the rookie league team in the Pioneer League back then. And in November of 1998, they backed a trailer into the back of then Henderson Stadium and loaded it up in the dark of the night and took off to what they thought was greener pastures in Montana, and left the city with a big hole to fill at Spitz, what is now Spitz Stadium. And the general manager of Rec and Culture gave Doug Jones a call, who he knew through political circles and baseball circles, and said, "What's out there? What could we replace this with?" And Doug, being the visionary that he has been, thought that the best opportunity was the Saskatchewan Major Baseball League, and it was a circuit of 4 or 5 teams. The Oyen Pronghorns dibble-dabbled in it a few times, and even the PBA Alberta dabbled in it as the Coaldale Gophers in previous iterations of the league, and ultimately decided to ask for an expansion team in the Saskatchewan Major Baseball League. So Doug and I were friends, and he was in town. His son was playing for the Lethbridge Pronghorns hockey team as a goalie, and he was in watching him, and he says, "Tomorrow's the annual meeting of the SMBL. I think we should go to Assiniboia and ask for the expansion team. You want to come along?" I said, "Sure." I got nothing going tomorrow. It was a Saturday. So 11 o'clock at night, we hopped in his vehicle and off towards Saskatchewan we went. Got to Gull Lake, turned south, went about 40 miles down the road toward the highway that goes across to Assiniboia, and he says, "Get on the cell phone," because, of course, Google and that didn't exist back then, and said, "Call the Waverly Inn in Assiniboia and book us a room when we get there about 3 in the morning." And so I got on the old cell phone and called directory assistants and asked directory assistants for the phone number of the Waverly Inn, and they said, "No, there's no Waverly Inn in Assiniboia." And I told him that, and he said, "Well, it has to be. That's where the meeting is." I said, and I went back on, told her that. She said, "I'm sorry, sir, but the only Waverly Inn is in Melville, Saskatchewan." And I told Doug that, and he says, "Damn, that's where the meeting is, Melville, Saskatchewan." So we did a 180 on the highway, went back the 40 miles to Gull Lake, and then carried on east to or actually we stayed in Regina and then went to Melville first. Got about 4 or 5 hours sleep in Regina, and then went on to Melville the next day. And in front of 5 or 6 people, the Bulls became a reality. So you compare those days of the SMBL to the modern Western Canadian Baseball League, and I have been I've been privileged to be a front row of all the changes and all the growth and unbelievable expansion of the league since those days.
What was your initial role with the team?
I was just an advisor for the first 3 years. Doug, we hired different people for the first 3 years. Attendance was weak at best. Bleeding red ink for the team. The stadium was certainly not to the standard it is now, and we had a lot of work to do to make it grow. And at the same point in time, we found that the Saskatchewan Major Baseball League wasn't a big drawing card in Lethbridge, and we needed a rebrand, and basically told the league after the third season in 2001 that you either need to change the name of this league or we can't be in it, because there's no connectivity between Saskatchewan League and Lethbridge, Alberta. So that's when the name changed to the Western Major Baseball League, which stayed stuck for a while until the branding and adding the word Canadian was ingenious. It's funny that an American actually was the one that suggested that, but that's a different story for a different day.
I want to get to the WMBL days and WCBL days in a bit, but maybe you can walk me through just the initial name for the team was the Bulls. So I want to know where the Bulls part came from, but also the LA Bulls, which, as we've discussed off air, was a reference to Lethbridge, Alberta. But why go with LA as opposed to the Lethbridge Bulls right off the hop?
If I remember right, and the memory could be fuzzy on this one a little bit, because I'd kind of, we talk about it a little bit. I know the first program had LA Bulls right on with an old logo and that, but I think that the idea was to give it something unique, to try to stand out and to draw attention to yourselves that, hey, what's that all about? And, spin off of the LA Dodgers, of course, paid reverence to the fact that the Dodgers had a farm club in Lethbridge. So I think between those two things, it was a fit there as a start, but ultimately it was probably more confusing than it was worth, which is why I think after 2 years of that, we decided that we're from Lethbridge and we're going to promote the Lethbridge brand with the Bulls.
Talk to me about the off-field. We'll get to the on-field, but the off-field experience of the Bulls that first year. You're coming into the stadium, like you said, the Pioneer League team has just kind of left. Who knows what they left behind or didn't leave behind. You got to figure out selling tickets and getting fans there and doing concessions, all that fun stuff. What was that crash course in that like?
Well, like I said, I was only in an advisory role, so I had multiple other things going on, so I wasn't directly involved in it. Doug was busy with hiring different people to try to grow the thing. We brought the baseball foundation into Spitz Stadium at the same time, and I do recall coming into the office building that now serves as a baseball hub here in Lethbridge, and 2 little offices and an office, a front office, a closet, a bathroom, and a basically a lunchroom, and that was the front office of baseball. And it's changed over the years. The building's been repurposed. We've changed rooms around. We blew out holes in walls and stuff to give us more office space, more hallways, more access to the clubhouse. So a lot has changed over the years, and a very small part-time staff that first 3 years, because you just didn't have the budget to do it. I mean, the budget for the Bulls the first year was probably in the $60,000. I mean, it's come up like 12-fold in the last number of years. So, you just had a limited budget, and you just kind of did it. There was no concessions really at the stadium at that point. It was antiquated at best, and the little shack they operated concessions out of. And I mean, it's amazing that to think back to those days. I would love to find the pictures back in those days to do it then and now, because we're in the lap of luxury now.
Talk about on field from what you remember that team. Coach Hubka was the first coach of the team. Team ends up going to the final. Coach Hubka pitches in the final, which is another humorous anecdote from those days. Les McTavish obviously has gone on to do a few things in baseball in this area. He was a pitcher on the team. What do you recall from the on field product that first season?
Well, I don't think the Bulls have ever gone far from their roots, and Prairie Baseball Academy has been a huge partner, in the city and Win Baseball since the inception. I mean, I don't think the Bulls would exist if it wasn't for Prairie Baseball Academy. It was an idea to keep some of those players around and give those college athletes a competitive experience in the summer season, as in summer college teams in the United States. And, that first roster was filled with PBA players, and you supplement it with, I remember, I think it was Chad Blackwell that went on and had a successful career in baseball and was one of our studs on the mound that year, as well as Les, who, became a fixture around Spitz Stadium and many other stadiums over the years, and pitched for the Bulls through a no-hitter that year. Remember that? That came up this past year because we had a pitcher throw a no-hitter this past year. That was the first no-hitter the Bulls have thrown since Les's one in 1999. So, yeah, it's just, that first team was the roster size also comes to mind. I mean, you're talking about 15 or 16 max on the roster. I know Miles Fletcher was on that team, and he's actively involved in Lethbridge baseball now. And we joke about those days. You're counting heads to make sure you got enough bodies to get in the van to go to your game, because so-and-so is working and this and that and the other things going on. And sometimes you only have 10 or 11 going on the road to wherever. And so much difference in everything from those days to the current WCBL Lethbridge Bulls.
One of the things you've touched on this was that you were joining the Saskatchewan Major Baseball League at the time, and you've got this Alberta team coming in there, and it really, with hindsight now, it transformed the league, both in terms of the name changes that followed, but also just the landscape of the entire league. Can you just touch on that legacy of the Bulls joining the league and some of what's happened since?
Yeah, we're very proud of that legacy here in Lethbridge. And, I don't know what would have happened, where things would have gone if we had gone a different direction, or if we hadn't got a Saskatchewan major team that year. I mean, it didn't take long to see that we weren't going to survive without our rivals like Medicine Hat or Red Deer or those type of communities involved in the league. And Doug was very involved in that. I was very involved, very passionate about, but this isn't going to work with just Saskatchewan teams. And that's no slight on the Saskatchewan teams at all, because they're wonderful. There are passionate baseball people there, and they do a great service to their communities in every community that has a team. But it's just your fan connection. They need that rival to connect. And we've developed a little bit of rivalry with Swift Current over the years, or maybe Regina when we meet them in the final, or those type of things. But it's still not the same as Medicine Hat and now in current days Okotoks. And that just makes it that much more special that we now have a very large contingent of Alberta teams in the league to compete with.
Looking back on 25 years of the Lethbridge Bulls, what are you most proud of, or what stands out to you most about the franchise?
Well, I often think that, we the changes over the 25 years are tremendous. However, I don't think we've ever reached our peak. That could be partially my fault, because I get pulled in many different directions, as you know. And sometimes the Bulls don't take the top priority because of other things that are going on, including league related. But I think you had to do those things to make everything successful. So I think we are where we're at because of all the effort from the Lethbridge contingent of people over the years. And, I think that probably, if you ask about the most proudest thing we have, is we have a stadium that we're very, very proud of, and it continues to be one of the premier fields in the league, and we definitely feel we have home field advantage when we play there, especially if on big nights at the stadium when the crowd's there and behind us. And we just feel like we're more and more part of the community, and want to showcase the team to more and more fans in the years to come.
On a personal level, you go from being a team advisor to the LA Bulls to president of the Western Canadian Baseball League, president of the Lethbridge Bulls, president of Little League Southern Alberta, president of the CCBC. What about that personal evolution that you've seen over those years as well?
Well, it's just about rolling up your sleeves and trying to do the best for the sport itself. And I've been blessed to be able to have a front row seat to all of those things that you mentioned, and contribute in some ways to all of it all, and try to show as much leadership and compassion to all the programs, no matter whether they're in your backyard or whether they're in a different province, and treat everybody with as much respect and loyalty as possible, and things just keep happening. So we just continue to grow with the sport as the sport allows you to grow.
Kevin, a pleasure as always. I hope you enjoyed tonight, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks again to Todd Hubka, Les McTavish, Denny Puszkar, and Kevin Kvame for joining us this week. And congratulations again to the Lethbridge Bulls on the coming 25th anniversary of the squad. We look forward to a full summer of celebration at Spitz Stadium during the WCBL season. We'd also like to tip our caps to our Platinum supporters, the Okotoks Dogs and AHP Academy, for all they do for us and for baseball in Alberta. Their support allows us to cover costs like web hosting fees and online newspaper subscriptions. For more, you can head to albertadugoutstories.com/supporters. Until next time, thank you for all of your support online, on social, and on air of Alberta Dugout Stories.